Going on, guys? So, um, after making the coral and seaweed, I was actually able to take my or tweak my procedural generation script that put like trees and rocks and everything randomly on terrain and apply that to the ocean where it applied the seaweed and coral to the bottom of the ocean. So, I'm just gonna go over here and there we go. It's awesome. I have to work on the swimming and everything like that. But um, I achieved what I wanted to in the past week. I didn't do the random fish yet; those are still the same. But I wanted to do the same thing for the fish as I did with the seaweed. So literally, I could just take whatever I want that I've made asset wise. So I took the starfish, and then you can see the swimming and everything is super like choppy, but you can see the it moves a little bit. And these are basically generated at like random sizes, so you'll see random sizes of the different types of seaweed and coral, as well as random positions within the terrain. I also did some terrain, new terrain texture, and I changed the map a little bit, like the height map. So this actually, you could see they're at different varying heights too. It could be on a hill, it could be flat. So this really works for anything. So it just I was when it finally worked, it was awesome. Um, so that's what I set up, and I want to make it so like as the player swims more and more and more, maybe it gets deeper terrain, and you know, right now it's just nothing because there's no terrain there. But as the player gets closer, I want there to be a trigger so it could eventually expand to as far as the player could take it. Um, so that's what I had here. And I also changed the skybox, so you see it's blue here. And let me just go back. So right now you see it's underwater, it's kind of like blue. I tried to use fog, like Dungeon Ward you mentioned, but it was too, I don't know, it didn't seem, I probably have to learn more about it, but it didn't seem that great. It was like too foggy, and even I lowered the density to like 0.001. Um, okay. So basically you could see the skybox with like the clouds and everything like that. And then once the player goes into the water, there is the skybox changes to blue, and then once the player goes out of the water, it changes back to the sky. So pretty cool overall. If you guys want to stick around, I'll just show you how I set it up if you're interested in that. But if you don't really care too much about that, then thanks for watching. And next week I'm going to work on the fish. So basically, how I set this up. So each terrain, as you can see here, has a terrain script automatically on it. So this has data like the width, the height map, the length of the actual terrain, which I just showed before. So I'll just zoom in, and this is actually, I'll go to the terrain. This is the terrain without anything on it. You can see there's like a little bump and everything, but it still puts the items or puts the objects on the terrain, even if there's different heights. So basically, so the terrain collider has all the information about the heights and the texture and things like that. Terrain stats, I'm making different biomes, so the jungle, lake, desert, plains, things like that. So I want to make it so it's somewhat automated. So wherever the player goes, there's an event trigger, and that will pull in whatever biome it is, and that way you're not automatically procedurally generating specific items to those different terrains, like if he's not there, because there's no point of instantiating objects obviously if they're not there, because it's just really performance heavy. So my thought was to base each asset. So let's see, terrain objects. So what I did was make terrain objects as a scriptable object, and these are the ones that I made for now, like tree, starfish, seaweed, coral tube, coral tentacle. And basically, you could see here the biomes list, which I use enums for. You could select any number of biomes that each object could spawn on. So for example, like if you wanted a rock to spawn underwater as well, I have it as a set as the forest, but you could add that and say, oh, I really want it to spawn in the ocean as well. So what my script will do is go in and let me just do it too while we're here. If it's found, if the biomes list contains the same one that the player enters, so for example the ocean, it's going to go ahead and spawn that object as well. So you can see now there's rocks. Probably have to change the rotation of them because they're a little messed up. I think I have to do negative 900 or negative 90 in the X. But you can see now there's rocks that spawn there. So in my game manager, I have a terrain object generator with all the terrain objects, which I listed here, which I could load from the resource or from this folder. And it's saying, check the terrain object generator list, master list, and then pull everything within that biome. So it would pull a list of everything except, let's say, large rock, and it wouldn't pull tree either. And then from that list, it's going to make a smaller list, which would be object to spawn list, and then based on that, it will spawn let me see. Oops. Sorry about that. All right. So based on that, it's going to spawn. I have it set for like a random range from 0 to 20 of each of the items in that list that I just mentioned. There's coral, seaweed, whatever. And it's gonna, for each terrain stats, which I showed before, each of these terrains is gonna have a terrain stats on it. And each terrain stats is listed in this terrain manager. So the terrain manager will hold a list of all the different terrain stats of all the different biomes, from ocean to desert, forest, jungle. And once the event is called that the player entered a different biome entered, it's going to take whatever biome and then spawn in that specific terrain what are the objects in that biome. So for example, go to the ocean, all the ocean items will be spawned, or objects will be spawned. I haven't set this up yet, the biome exited, but I might have to maybe clear or unhide. That might be good too. Or hide all those game objects for performance too. If the player's not in that area, there's no sense of them being there. I haven't done that yet, but just the spawn thing was awesome when I set it up. And then finally we have our terrain object generator, which basically determines the spawn point, random spawn point, each of the terrain that it spawns on, adds the list of objects, and places the objects after getting the transform of the object and the spawn position. And then I also have in the spawn position, there's an unusable spawn points list. So just to avoid the same spawn point being generated. So that's it. I can go on for this for a while, but we're already at 9 minutes of this video. But really happy with the results here. And, thanks for watching. Next week we'll be randomly generating fish within those biomes. So probably using a box collider or something. Thanks for watching.